Hello, welcome to the Minimalist EDC. My name's Chris, and today we're going to do a little bit of project on this guy right here. This is the Civivi Vision FG. I posted some videos on initial unboxing and first impressions and a takedown of it where I took it apart to look at the inner workings, so please check those out if you haven't seen them before. But today, as I discussed in those other videos, I'm going to dye the scales of this guy. I really do not like the natural G10, this day glow looking plastic, but I got it in this color specifically because I did want to dye it. And today I want to walk you through that journey as I do it. I've dyed a knife before. I had an Elementum that I dyed. I don't have it any longer. I sold it at one point in time. But just to give you an example of what this kind of looks like in the end, this is a Pena knife. It's a Raptor, and this is in natural micarta. I have this guy right here. This is the Pena Apache that is in OD green micarta. But this knife doesn't come in OD green micarta. It used to be in natural. So this is an example of what you can kind of expect a transition to look like in with these scales, right? So there's a few things to think about when you're doing this. What color do you want it? What material are you starting with? What color are you starting with? There's a few things that are going on here. So I'm using G10. The previous example was micarta, but they should all take color pretty well. It really depends on your starting color, like I said, and it depends on how long you dye these for. So there's a couple things to think about when you're doing this, and one of them is it's permanent. When you do this, you are permanently altering your knife. You are changing the value of your knife. You've turned it a color you like, but there's no guarantee that anyone else is going to like that color. So if you're ever to sell a knife on Reddit or some of the other forums, it is going to be considered damaged at that point. Damaged is subjective, but this is a permanent altering of your knife. You also have to consider where you're going to do this because you are working with dye. It is probably a good idea to think about doing this outside if you have a camp stove or some way to produce heat. I'm going to do it in my kitchen because I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to mess anything up. But be very considerate about what you're working with, maybe even the clothes you're wearing when you're doing this, because if you splash a little bit of dye, you're going to ruin a nice shirt or a nice pair of jeans or something. So just be aware of that. And today, I am going to go with this color. The RIT dye is what is always suggested. It takes very well to these types of scale materials, and I'm going to go with eggplant. I want a nice rich purple color on this. So let's start off. First off, I'm going to need to take the scales off of it. Let's see. So as you saw in my takedown video, the scales come off this thing pretty easily. I am going to have to take that pivot out, which I was hoping not to, and then I'm going to preserve these posts if I can. And then I'm also going to take the pocket clip off. In the end of the day, I'm hoping this works. I bought this off Amazon. It's a Civivi milled titanium pocket clip. It fits the Elementum, I believe, but it looks like it's going to fit this as well. So I'm hoping to get away from this steel spring clip and then go with the milled aluminum or milled titanium in the end. But we'll get to that when we get there. So the next thing I said, I got to get this out. I think I need a T6 to get the, what is this? Is it a T? It's the wrong one. Pardon me. Here we go. So we're going to use our T6 to get the pocket clip off. And set that aside. I'm going to leave the screws intact so that I don't lose them. And so now this guy moves around. And one thing I noticed when I took this thing apart originally is the little posts that are holding the spine together. These right here, they will come out and get lost on you. So I'm going to try to pinch this together as much as possible and keep this solid and pull the pivot. Ideally, I can put that pivot right back in if I haven't moved things. Nope, it's not going to go. I will have to reassemble this manually in a little bit, but it can stay there for the time being. I'll just push it off to the side. So what we have left is our scales, and now we're going to prep them. One thing to understand when dyeing your scales is you want the dye to take evenly, and one of the things that will stop the dye from taking evenly is any oils, dirt, debris, anything that's on these that gets in between the dye and the material we want to absorb it is going to affect it. So if I were to like get my hand oils all over this and then go and dip these, I might get smudgy dye uptake where like it'll be deep purple here but light purple here because the oils have gotten in the way. So to combat that, I want to get all the oils off. The easiest way to do this is just to use a light degreaser. I'm going to use Formula 409, but any light duty kitchen degreaser should work just fine. And be careful when doing this as well to make sure you get in the pivot and around the back of where the pivot goes, because you've got your knife oil deposits there as well. So when we've oiled the blade, or when the factory oiled the blade, it's going to have more oil in that area. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Formula 409, get it on here, and just do a really good scrub down of the scale. And to be quite honest with you, I think what I would like to do at this point is actually switch to using a glove, because if I get all the grease off and then get my hand on this guy, I'm going to put more grease back on. So from here on out, as I handle the scale, I'm going to be using a glove. Get in that pivot, and as you can see, it is kind of dirty in there. Let's see if that'll focus. So I'm going to try to get that out. Honestly, it doesn't matter a whole lot because the pivot's going to be in there and you're not going to see it anyway. But if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right? So let's make sure we get this thing cleaned up and ready to go. Also, we're going to want to make sure it's fully dry before we get to the next step. It's going to take me a while to get the next portion set up anyway and get the dye ready, so I'm not really worried about that, but we will get it taken care of, and then we're going to get this other one done. This being a brand new out of the box in the past couple days, it doesn't have a lot of crud on it yet, so it makes it pretty easy. If you've been using it, you make sure you get all your pocket lint off of it and not everything else that could be causing it problems with the dye. So we got our scales there. We've got our dye, and so we're about to move to the kitchen. Just to let you know, we're going to be using a 8-to-1 dilution of this. So I've got 8 ounces of dye. You could use half of it, like 4 ounces of dye, and then 4 cups of water. I don't know that I want to dye anything else purple in the near future, so I'm just going to use the whole bottle. That way, when I dispose of it, I can dispose of it cleanly and not have it lying around. And so what I'm going to be using is 1 bottle of RIT dye to 8 cups of water. All right, awesome. I'm going to go get the setup in the kitchen, and I'll see y'all there. All right, thanks for joining me in the kitchen. I got the mixture ready. Again, 8-to-1 dye to water. Got it on the stove. For the dye to have good adherence, you're going to need the water to be about 200 degrees. So you want to get it to just below boiling or a very light boil. Be very careful here, because if this does boil over on you, you have dye everywhere. So that's something to be cautious of. Just use common sense and be careful. So what I've done is taken the scales and tied a little string around where the pivot hole is so that I can dip these. What I'm going to do is dip them both at the same time, because remember, if you want to have uniform color on both of your scales, you're going to want to have them submerged for the exact same amount of time. Also, I mean, you could possibly want to have different gradients, but I want to be able to fish them out as well pretty easily. I have some paper towels next to it so that I can immediately dry them off. And I see the it's getting a little bit violent, so I'm going to turn that down. Good deal. All right. One things to remember, the mantra of doing this, it is permanent. So we want to, when we submerge these down into our liquid, we want to understand that you can always get darker. You can never go back to lighter. So once we go into the liquid, I'm going to check them every few seconds. My gut tells me with this material and everything I've read, it's going to take about 30 seconds to get to the color I want. But after about 5-10 seconds, I'm going to pull them up, take a look at them, see what we're dealing with, and then go back in the liquid if I want it to go darker. You're always going to be able to go from light to dark, but don't think you're going to be able to take a black scale and dye it yellow. That's just not going to happen. And then also, like, if you do mess this up, keep in mind you can always put them back in, go darker if you want. And last resort, you can get black dye. You can always take these things black, and black scales always look good on anything, or at least they don't look bad, right? So here we go. We're going to start the process here. I got both here, and then I'm going to dip them into the liquid, kind of jiggle them around on their strings to make sure that they're good and coated, and then in a few seconds we'll lift them back up. So here we go. And I'm going to kind of just move them around, make sure the dye is contacting all different sides of the scale. All right. We're going to come up and take a look. All right. You can see this that is adhering to it, but it is not nearly as dark as I want it to be. So we're going to go back in. There we go. Just make them dance underwater a little bit. And then we're going to come back up. They're getting there. They're getting that kind of eggplant color. It is not as dark as I'd like. So we're going to continue doing this. Back under. Just making sure they're moving around. And you can also use like a coat hanger to make a hook if you wanted to put it in the scale. There's a couple different ways where you can get this this mechanism working. Come back up. We are getting much closer to where I want to be. They're still a little light, and I think that's because of the starting color of them. But let's put them back in for about another 10 seconds or so and see where we get. All right. This looks nice. Let's take a look at where we're at right now. Like I said, you can always go darker, but we want to see where we're at. So I'm going to take these to the sink real quick, wash off the dye, and take a look at the status of what we've got so far. And forgive me, I can't move the camera right now because I have only one camera mount. But I will be back in a second to show you what we got. So, this is where we're at right now. They are a little bit lighter than I want. They're taking the color, and they are still a little translucent, as you can see. You can kind of see through them. I was hoping to get them to get a little bit more opaque. So we're going to try to go a little bit darker here. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit, make sure that this is a low boil or a simmer. And I got my strings a little crossed, but here we go. Let me go back in for a little bit more. I think I'm going to give them about another 10 seconds and see where we're at. And some materials like micarta, it is a more natural material. You know, it is linen mixed with resin, will take color much faster than a plastic like this. So just be aware that different materials like FRN and micarta are going to operate completely differently. All right, let's come up. I think we're almost there. I like this color. So this is taking a little bit longer than I expected, but that's totally fine. We got nothing else to do right now. And if you're enjoying this content, I would appreciate a like and subscribe. I'm going to do more projects like this. I have another knife that with FRN handles that I want to dye an OD green, and I will try to get that done and put it up on the channel as well. So please follow along for that adventure. Okay, I'm going to take these over, get them washed off, and take a quick peek because I think they're getting close to what I envisioned. Okay. All right, coming back, we've got, they're a little bit darker. They're getting that eggplant hue to them, a little bit of Concord grape looking color. They're still not as opaque as I wanted. Maybe that when I get the scales back behind them, that opaqueness may not show nearly as much as it does right now because it'll have the stainless behind it. But you know what? I think I'm gonna ask for a little bit more out of this and go a little bit darker. So I'm gonna put these in for another 10 to 15 seconds and see what we get. So I was kind of hoping for like a royal purple or a deep eggplant. And back in. If you're interested in this and you want to attempt it, Blade HQ put out a good video back in the day. It has Zach hosting it from Zach in the Wild. I would look that up on YouTube as well. I'll see if I remember. I'll link it down in the description. It has really good information as well. It's where I initially learned how to do this and got my inspiration from. So if you're on the path to this type of project, I'd definitely recommend that video as well. Okay. And I think this is where I'm going to stop. So let me get these cleaned off, dried off, and I'll meet you back at the table. All right. Thanks for joining me back here at the table. So here's what we ended up with. We have both the scales. I've got them washed off. I'm getting them dried. You also want to get out, give them a good rubbing because you want to get any extra dye off that may happen to be, residing on these, because you see it's got a little bit of purple here. You don't want it getting in your pocket, getting on any of your other clothes, because then you just have a mess, wouldn't you? And have to throw away something else. See, I am getting a little bit of purple as I go through this and get in each of these little grooves and whatnot. So I probably can, once I get this thing back together, continue to do this a little bit, because it is going to shed color for just a little bit as it finalizes it. So we still got the strings on it. I'm going to get those off real quick, and then we'll put this guy back together and see what we got. I'll tell you already, I'm very happy with the results here. I think I was hoping for something just a tad bit darker, but I really liked where this ended up. So we got those off, and now we're going to try to get this feather back together. All right. And since I already got a disassembly video, I may fast forward through this so y'all don't have to watch it. But if anyone that wants to see me put together this knife again, here you go. On the back scale, I'm going to get the stop pin in, and if you watch the other video, each of these little pins right here are a pain in the butt because there's nothing holding them in. They slide through on both sides, and so there it goes. Once I get this back pin in, or back plate on, it makes life a whole lot easier. And we get this, get the pivot in. Oh Lord, just making a mess. Okay, so we got that in. Next we need our blade. And so we got our ball bearings, and I might as well put just a little bit of lube on there. Like, there's no real terrible need for it. This thing is pretty fidgety, but since I've been messing with it, might as well get a little fresh oil in there on the bearings and the racers. So I'm gonna have to tension this. Excuse me a second while I do this. I'll tell you what, one of the easiest things I can do is get that screw in the back side from here. You can see why this is such a pain in the butt. And it's not the worst knife I've ever taken apart, but it's definitely not the easiest either. And so getting this guy in should secure the back spacer. It should give me a point of contact for this post and allow me to get the blade in. So the blade's going to go in. I think I'm going to have to... I thought that was going to happen. This little spring is a little temperamental, which is fine. We'll get it back. It's all part of it when you're working with mechanical stuff, right? We got our bearing in. So, and here is our mechanism. Backwards, of course. Here we go. So this is your locking mechanism. So when the blade is out, you have this in place to locking it in. And then when you pull back on the spring and close it, then it locks it in like this. So that is the really unique mechanism that this blade has. I think it is really innovative. So I'm just going to compress the spring, use my fingers to not let it escape, and then get it back in its little slot. That thing can be a little bit of a bugger. So we're going to take our post over here, slide it in. Perfect. And then this guy. See all the little posts line up with the scale. That's when you know you have it correct. And then this guy. So it's going to live right there. And the easiest way I can secure it is get the pivot back in. That way nothing can move out of our mechanism. It's cross-threaded. It keeps wanting to cross-thread. Let's not let it do that. There it goes. All right. And now for the pocket clip. So, as I told you before, I wanted to get away from that little steel spring clip and go for this guy right here. So, I don't know if it'll fit. I have not tried this yet, but you guys can hang out with me. Oh, that's nice. They actually, if you see that, if it'll focus, a little bit of blue Loctite on the screws it comes with. That's very nice of them. Come pre-Loctited. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to use these screws. We'll see. Because if you notice on the original, one screw is longer than the other. And so I don't know with this if the depth will allow me to use these screws, but I'm going to try. If not, I'm going to try the other ones. All right, that seemed to get in there. That's good. And if not, I'm going to just put this clip on my Elementum. It seems like it's going to work. It's going into that backspacer. The one thing that I have a little bit of a reserved feeling about is, let's see if you can see this. The way that this is depressed, it has a cutout for the backspacer or for the clip, and so it's pushing on it like this, and you can see it's kind of at a weird angle. I don't know if this is going to be doable. I'll try it out. Like that's not the point of this video. I'll see if it works, but I'll get it. Do we have any blade play? Just a tiny amount. There we go. All right. So, what do you think? We now have a eggplant purple scale. We have a color way for this that didn't exist before. It's completely custom to me. I'm the only one that has one of these, and I rather like it. I think it looks sharp. So if you enjoyed this journey with me, I appreciate a like and subscribe. It's a lot of fun to make this type of stuff. I'm hoping that other people enjoy it as well. And if you're keen-eyed among you, it looks like my C is off in my Civivi. That's probably why it was trying to cross-thread. So I'm going to fix that, but not make you guys watch it. Thanks for liking and subscribe. Y'all have a great day.